Today, I am thrilled to be with Janetta Messmer. She is an author of long novellas, I would say long novellas and regular size novellas. And we actually have two Christmas books we're going to talk about today. Janetta, why don't you introduce yourself to everybody and tell them about the unique living experience that you're going through right now and have been for 2 years.
Okay. Well, I am Janetta Fudge Messmer, and I'll talk a little bit later about the Fudge part of my name. But me and my husband and our pooch, we live in an RV. We actually have been RVers for the last 10 years since we've retired. But we have been living in the RV full time now for a little over 2 years. And it is small and a unique experience, but it's funny because I think about it every so often when I come in and I think, oh, we should probably look for a permanent home. And then I look around and I really love my home. I would like to add a little bit of square footage sometimes. when my husband and I might not be seeing eye to eye, and going into the bathroom isn't really an option because I can pretty well clean it, just standing there. I don't have to move much. But overall, I have found through this experience in my own case, you really don't need a lot of stuff to survive. And we have a storage unit. I mean, we're not that good with this lifestyle, but it still comes down to there's a lot of stuff that takes up your time. And it's been a very cleansing experience to actually live this type of lifestyle. I do know that, excuse me, I do know that my husband's more of a clutterer than me. So I can say that when he's not in the room. But overall, I don't say this to try to sell the lifestyle on to other people, but it has worked for us. And we do enjoy traveling. We just got done with over 10,000 miles traveled this summer.
Wow.
And we hit 26 states.
Oh my gosh.
And I mean, it was just, we saw places that the United States is a beautiful place.
It is. Yeah. And it's hard to find the time, like you said, to travel. I mean, people go out of the country or they go to the same spots. Of all those 26 states, did you have a favorite or one that particularly stood out for you?
Well, I would say probably Maine is where we spent the most time. And we ended up going up and working at a KOA up there for about 6 weeks because you can't afford to stay in campgrounds up in Maine because it's kind of expensive. And so we do work camp along with doing other stuff, but that was the only way we were going to afford to stay up there, because up in near Bar Harbor, the spot we had, if someone else stayed there, it would have cost them about $3,000 a month.
Oh my word. Oh wow. Yeah.
So with us working 24 hours a week, we got it for like $48 a week or something like that, and then plus a wage. So you're still working even though you're retired, but it's less hours, less, you don't tend to be as stressed out, I don't think, as you were in your job that you worked before you retired. So that's what we found. And obviously it supplements the income and keeps, and like my husband says, he does it more than I do because it gets him out of my hair so I can write.
That's right. That's the all important thing. I think if I were doing the thing I would miss most about the RVing, because I love being in big spaces.
Right.
But what I would miss most, I think, would be the gardening that I do. Not having a garden,
Yeah.
because that's what I really love. But and some people tend to just be homebodies, and it's fortunate that my husband and I are both real homebodies. We don't even care to travel a whole lot. We just like being home and puttering around here, and you get connected with your church family. Excuse me. My husband occasionally preaches. He stands as the pastor, and I teach little ones for Sunday school. So you get those connections. They're hard to walk away from, but I admire you being able to do that and just kind of get rid of all the. So this is a little confusing, because I actually interviewed Janetta back in July for her one of her Christmas books that was coming out, or had just come out actually last Christmas, I believe. And we were going to wait. I put it on the calendar for November 16th, and we set up another time to interview. And here we are again, and it never posted the last one. So we're going to actually do a twofer on the books today. So I feel this has never happened. I was so embarrassed when I realized what happened. And Janetta, she's been so gracious to just say, oh, it's okay. It's not that big a deal. So I appreciate that. But she's funny. And so I think one of the things we talked about is just because she's so funny, and she uses a lot of humor in her writing, I would assume, right? You use a lot of humor in your writing, that it's fun to talk to somebody who's got that kind of that sense of humor that tickles the funny bone now and then. So last year, tell me about your Christmas novella we originally talked about, and then let's talk about the one that just came out that you all should probably check out now. So tell us about both of those.
Okay. The first one that came out last year is called Rekindled for Christmas Eve. And it's set in Annapolis, Maryland. And it was about a love story that didn't happen. And there were a little bit of lies that went on that kept the two main characters apart, and how they ended up getting back together in a very different circumstance. And that's kind of the gist of that story. And the surprise in it was, which I'm not giving it away.
I was going to say, don't give any spoiler alerts.
No, I'm not giving any spoilers, because this is found out at the very beginning. Reese receives a letter from a daughter he did not know he had. So with that, they uncovered quite a few different situations, and reluctantly, the Lord intervened in it, and ended up a very sweet story. I'm not sure there was a lot of comedy in that one, which kind of surprised me, because I do tend to like to write more in the comedic sense. But this one was a story that I actually brainstormed with my sisters when we had a sister trip years ago. And it took me 20 years to actually sit down and write the story. And my sister, when we brainstormed, said that, Reese Tom Selleck could play Reese. Well, by the time I wrote the stupid thing, he's got to be the captain of the, the father. So that it turned out that, so at the end, when I was almost finished to send it in to my publisher, I had my brother read it, because he's retired Navy, and I needed him to do all the Navy stuff to make sure I was okay on that. And at the end, we talked about it, and he said it should be a Hallmark movie. And he says, I started laughing, and I said, Stan, you do know that you just read a Christian contemporary romance? And he goes, oh, yeah, it was very good, type thing. And we got a good laugh out of that and everything. But so it was kind of a family affair with this one. Yeah. I just appreciated my family's help, and it just took me a while.
Well, that one is fairly short. It's a 20,000 word
Yeah.
novella. So it's a quick read. You probably could sit down and read that in one sitting, no problem.
Yes.
And when did that release, Janetta?
That was October of 22.
Okay. So that was
Yes.
last year.
Yes.
And then this year you just had an unexpected Christmas gift, which is what we talked about, the length of it. It's 43,000 words. So we talked about it being a long novella,
Mhm.
quite a novel, depending on how you characterize a novel. But that one just released. Was that November 1st it released?
Yeah, yes, November 1st.
So let's hear about, because this one, being your newest. So here we have two Christmas books that you guys can check out, for this. It's perfect season for this. So tell us about an unexpected Christmas gift.
Well, I got the idea for it because my husband and I have done a variety of jobs through our years of working. And one of our jobs was we owned a bed and breakfast. And I always wanted to write a story, and I expected it to have a little bit more to do with the actual bed and breakfast. But it turned out to be that the bed and breakfast was more a character in the book. But anyway, it still has a bed and breakfast in it, and it had some permit problems that caused the city manager and the main character, Breanna, to have odds with each other.
And Breanna is the owner of the bed and breakfast, I take.
Yes, her mom and dad obviously live with her to help her, get it off the ground and everything, because it had belonged to her grandfather. But because of permit problems, which kind of went along with what we dealt with the bed and breakfast we had, so I could write that one with no trouble. And we had to, we ended up taking the gentleman that we bought the bed and breakfast from to court because of situations that he had not finished. So I thought, well, that would be a perfect setting for a book. And it really, like I said, it kind of took a little bit down that highway, but it was more about the angst between Breanna and the city manager, but she didn't have time for the city manager's stuff because she was getting married.
Oh.
Yeah. So it turned into where when she tries on her wedding dress, things sort of turn upside down, and the city manager's right in the middle of it all. So they end up having to work together instead of working apart to get things straightened out. And so that's kind of the premise of an unexpected Christmas gift. But I kind of, after the fact, you always look, oh, I wished I could have, or I wished I would have added some stories that, from the B&B days, because, we had such a fun time owning the bed and breakfast. But because of certain circumstances like 9/11 happening right in the middle of it and the permit problems, we didn't get to enjoy it as long as I had hoped.
So you called this a cozy mystery, but is there romance in there too?
Oh, yeah.
Okay. And you also, where is it set?
It is set in Colorado, outside of Boulder, Colorado.
Okay, so
actually in a make-believe town, but
So where was your bed? Your the one you and your husband own. Where was that?
We actually owned one in Montrose, Colorado, which is
Are
on the
you
west.
from Colorado? Mainly Colorado?
I'm not originally from Colorado. I'm from Kansas, and I moved to Colorado when I was about 20, 21, 22 years old.
Okay. So you had one from Annapolis, and then you talked about 9/11 being a problem, but I didn't know if that was because you guys lived in the area or if it was just things hit at that time.
No, it's just with everything that hit, and the lodging kind of took a hit at that time, and everything just compiled, and we just decided that now was the time to go and get a job and a real job other than the bed and breakfast, and that's when we closed it down. But it's still, as I told my husband, I said, I have a couple of things from the Rusty Moose, is what it was called. And one of them is a rusty moose, literally is why we named it that. And but
Okay,
it stands about.
Go ahead.
It stands about.
Picture this.
Yeah, I wished I had a picture I could show you. But it stands about probably 3.5 foot tall, and it's rusty. I mean, that's the, and we had it in a kind of a berm area outside of the B&B, and we had found a rock that we set it behind, and it was just beautiful. Well, I still have that. And I told my husband, I said, I'm not into dying or anything like that, but if I die, I want that as my headstone.
If you die?
Well, when I die.
I'm sorry, Janetta. Yeah. None of us are going to get out of this without.
Yeah. But I said, I really don't really want a headstone or anything, but just use Rusty, and put whatever on it, and she lived and loved whatever. And then the other thing that we have in our storage unit that I can't give up is the sign. We had a very large sign with a moose, and it was circled in metal and everything. But anyway, those are the two things that I've held on to, and it's just hard to let things go.
I'm assuming those are in your storage unit. You're not hauling around on your RV.
Well, actually, Rusty is out front of our RV because we'll be here for 6 months. And so we just set him up, and people walk by and wonder why there is a moose in front of our RV.
So how big is, well, before I get to, I want to talk more about that. Where does Fudge come from? Janetta Fudge Messmer. You were going to tell us about that.
Oh, yes. Okay.
That's your pen name, right?
Yeah, that's my maiden name. And, you're not given a gift like that and not use it when you become a writer. I mean, it's just too perfect to do that. But the funniest thing that happened when I published my first book, I got a deal on for the car and the magnetic thing, and I got everything. So one day this gentleman comes up to the car and says, "Do you sell fudge?" And I go, "No, I sell books." And he goes, "Well, I saw the Fudge name. I thought you sold fudge." And I have really seriously, I've been asked that I don't know how many times.
Why not? I mean, that's would make sense.
Yeah. And so I seriously thought at book signings that I should start selling fudge. Yeah. I mean, but I just never have perfected a,
I was going to ask. I was going to ask, do you have a good fudge recipe? Because that was.
No, not really. I mean, my mom used to make it, but I can't say it was one of my favorite things at Christmas to have fudge. But
I love fudge.
Yeah.
I did find an amazing chocolate chip recipe that I've been bragging on. It's like the best chocolate chips I have ever made in my life. But it's a lot of work to try to sell them,
Yeah. So I've thought about that, but I just thought that was so funny the first time that somebody come up and asked me that, because, I've lived with that for, well, at that time it would have been 60 years. And it was like, I never thought people thought that. I mean, I just never put that 2 and 2 together. But then somebody asked me if it was my middle name. And I got, now, I've got a strange first name, but I don't think my parents would have given me Fudge for my middle name. So it's just funny how people react to names. But the funniest story that I found out after I had talked to my mom, and asked her questions, at the end of her life, I guess I could say, we were talking about 1942 was when she was in California as an 18-year-old. And I was doing the adding, and I figured out it was 1942. So I asked her, I said, Mom, I said, you were in California, right at the beginning of the war. And she goes, oh, yes. And there were so many nice looking soldiers on the train. And I said, well, okay, and she says, and I dated one. And I go, oh, this is a story I've never heard before. And she says, yes, and his name was Pickle. And I go, Mom, yeah, Pickle. And I said, Mom, I said, what are the odds? You dated a pickle and you married a fudge. I just, to this day, I tell that story, and it's like, what are the chances? And she just got the cutest smile on her face, and she goes, well, I had never thought about that. But, so
was Pickle his last name?
Yeah, I guess.
So interesting. One of our church people, her mother recently passed away, and her maiden name was Pickle. And there's a Pickle Road out here where we live. So it's like, I wonder if we're all. I mean, how many people come up with the last name Pickle? They have to be related somehow.
I mean, I could have been Pickle instead of Fudge. I mean, I just got such a kick out of that when
now you could do a historical fiction set in during World War II, where a little romance.
Oh,
would be kind of interesting.
Yeah, now that is a thought. Yeah,
something like that.
Yeah, I did one historical fiction, and I loved the story. It was it's close to one of my favorite ones, but I don't know if I got another historical in me. I don't know. I've thought about it for a while.
Takes a lot of work.
Ooh, yeah, but it was fun. I did have, and it was set in Colorado. I seem to set a lot of my books in Colorado, and because I like Colorado.
It's interesting when my grandmother, was young, she wanted to be part of the Daughters of the American Revolution. So the requirement was to go back and find your genealogy. And it was all before Ancestry.com and all that. This was a long time ago. I think Grandma was probably born in 1905 or 1906, somewhere around that time. And so she did the genealogy. And years ago, I wanted to be a writer since I was 12. And my mom was probably my biggest encouragement. And when my kids were little tiny babies, I remember my grandmother had this genealogy, and my mom got a copy of it. We're actually related to John Adams.
Oh, wow.
Mayflower, I know. But she gave me I still have that genealogy. I have the list of everything she had found out.
Oh, my God.
Never taken the time to really delve. And my mom says, this is for you, because someday you need to write something historical with your grandma's past. And I'm like, I just came across it again the other day, and shame on me that I haven't, but I want to go back and do that because it's pretty interesting.
Oh, yeah, that would be, oh my gosh.
And then you have interesting past, like my grandpa joined the Navy at 16. He lied about his age. His father actually worked for the Naval Air Station right there. It was in San Francisco. He worked for the Naval Air Station. Everybody knew him. So when he went in to join up, my grandpa told everyone, whoever the recruiter was, that they want to know your parents. And he said, well, my mom and my dad are dead. So that night at dinner, his dad came in and said, hey, Valencia, talking to his wife, he goes, did you know we were dead? I had no idea we were dead. It turns out we're dead. And so my grandpa would tell the story. It was incredible. But my grandfather, his father said, if you want to join the Navy so bad, I'll go ahead and sign you up. So he did. So he was so he has the stories of the Navy. He loved it. He absolutely loved it. But years and years later, he worked for the Naval Air Station in Alameda, which was where I grew up. And they were going to give him a high security job, and they did a background check and discovered that he had lied when he was just 16, and it almost ended his career. That one little lie from that many years ago, because they do a deep dive into security, and it almost ended his career. So you start thinking about, it's interesting to see. We don't talk enough to our elder, I was fortunate when I went back to school to get my teaching certificate. I was in a sociology class, and they required that we interviewed a person older than a certain age, 65, but now that's offensive. But I sat with my grandpa at the time, who was about 87 years old. and asked him questions, and he had lost most of his hearing by then. He was very hard of hearing. So I just let him talk. He talked for hours and hours and hours. And I came up with more stuff that I never knew about him. That was such a blessing to have that assignment. And when he died, they used portions of that. My grandmother had died by then, and my grandpa remarried at 85. He remarried and was married for another 15 years before he.
Oh my gosh.
I know, he danced at his 100th birthday with his wife. So they took portions of that and put it in his obituary, wrote it up, a big thing in the paper. So just kind of interesting. You know, we need to talk to our older people. I wish. My mom died very young, 69. I never thought to ask her all those, you know, delve into her life and get all these answers, or my dad. And now I'm kicking myself wishing I had done that. When
I know.
we don't respect. I don't think we respect the older generation. We should. They have so much wisdom to impart. So much wisdom.
Yeah, that's why I took. Well, I went and stayed there in my hometown because my mom was going into the nursing home, and I knew she needed somebody to be there, you know, to help her. And then I'm there like the second day, and I thought, oh, I'm here for a month. You know, what are we going to do? You know, I mean, I didn't have a problem sitting there talking to her because she was, you know, the only thing that was wrong with her was her mobility. But so I started asking her questions, and it was funny. After I got done, I compiled it all, sent it to my siblings, and they were thrilled to death with, you know, with pictures and everything. And it got me thinking, is that maybe that was why I had started this writing journey, was then in turn to be able to help people tell their story.
Right.
Because I'm teaching a class here at not at the resort we're at, but it's an overall resort. They have like 7 resorts here in Mesa, Arizona. And they have a lifestyle, it's called Lifestyle University. And so last year I started teaching a class called Tell Your Story, and people want to write their memoirs. And so I'm teaching it again this year. And, but, you know, I just thought it was so interesting how the Lord placed that in my life for asking my mom, and then being able to share it with other people to help them write their stories.
Well, we think, you know, I look back at my life, and I don't think my story is all that interesting, but it's interesting because it's different. I mean, to somebody who doesn't have that experience, or the wisdom that you grow up, you know, especially for us as Christians, where we get our wisdom from the Bible. We're not just getting it from man, we're getting our wisdom from the Bible. And you start looking at those things. I you know, remember my dad, who was a very quiet, big man, 6'5". When growing up, he was probably 250 pounds. He scared the daylights out of me just because he was so big. But I remember him going to the store one day, and we got home, and he discovered that the clerk had given him 25 cents over change. He drove all the way back down to the store and returned that 25 cents. And that, he never said anything. I mean, we kind of said, oh, I got to go back and do this. But they taught by example. You know? And even today, it's like, I can't imagine somebody gives me extra change, I don't even consider taking it. You know, you've got to give it back. It's just the way that's just the right thing to do. So yeah, the older generation, I think things have fallen by the wayside. It's very sad. I know it's the way things are supposed to happen, but we just don't have that family unit that I had growing up. That was dinner at the table, mom and dad. Very few of my friends had parents who had been divorced. It was never a thing.
Oh no, it was expected in our home. Boy, your butt better be in that chair at 5 o'clock, or you better have a good excuse as to why you're not.
That's right.
I don't remember missing many meals, but
well, and yeah, my mom was my mom worked full-time, but she would have this, and we would help cook and everything. But Sunday morning was a huge breakfast after church, and Sunday night was always a big dinner. She spent her weekends doing the cooking and the cleaning and the laundry, and I never heard her complain. And then she worked hours during the week. It's just what you do.
Yeah. So. And I think that's where the downfall has been. I'm not saying that women shouldn't work or whatever, but I still think that the importance of working at home, just it became such almost taboo to say that you were home, that you
Right.
work from home. I mean,
Something
and that's
wrong with
so
you.
wrong. Yeah,
Something wrong with
that's
you
so
if
wrong.
you're just
Yeah,
mother and housewife, and that's a lofty, you're raising a generation.
yeah,
The more we can
yeah,
put into that,
absolutely.
I went back to school when my kids were older. I quit work when I had my kids. I wanted to be home with them as long as I could. So I think
Yeah.
that's important, but that doesn't mean people should feel guilty for working. I mean,
Oh no, no, no. Because I mean, if they can make that work, and still feel that they're spending, the time that they need with the kids and stuff, then that's fine and dandy. I just know I never had any kids, or we never had any kids, but I'm not sure I could have juggled it all. I mean, I just the job and coming home and taking care of the kids. I think I think I'd have gone nuts if I'd had to do that, because I think I'd have had to spend my time with the kids and
yeah.
feel, yeah,
Well,
just,
but people have to put food on the table as well. So
yeah.
it's a hard choice sometimes. It's a hard
Yeah.
choice.
Oh, yeah, that's, yeah.
So we are about ready to wrap up. So we're going to put in the show notes both links to both books.
Okay.
We'll put you have a website, I'm assuming.
Hmm.
We'll put
Yes.
that in there, and we'll put all of your contact information so people can get a hold of you. But what a perfect time of year to pick up a Christmas novella for somebody as a gift. It's a perfect Christmas gift, having a fun book to read. And so I just appreciate your grace, Janetta, and coming on here and talking to me. And my little goof up, I cannot believe I did that. But you know what? Just shows that we're all fallible, right?
Yeah. And I'm okay. Hey, I don't care. I just enjoyed getting together with you again, and just fun day, fun
Well,
morning.
hopefully you'll have another Christmas book for us next year, and we'll get you back on here and in a timely manner. It teaches me, if you have somebody who needs to be on around Christmas time, do not interview them in July. It just doesn't work, So lesson learned. So I hope you and your husband stay safe in your travels. And see, now, how are you going to do Thanksgiving? I mean,
We actually have some dear friends that live down here in another park, and they used to live here and moved, and they're in kind of a permanent home. And so they invited us over for
oh, nice.
Thanksgiving. And so I thought that was very nice. And she's a very good cook, and she takes good care of us. We came down here, like I said, we've been here 3 weeks, and we both had colds or sinus, or we had something, and she came over and brought us soup and everything.
Oh,
Just the sweetest couple you'd ever want to meet. And so when she invited us for Thanksgiving, both of us said yes before, we looked at each other to see if it was okay, because both of us wanted her cooking. But
and her company.
and her company. Oh, of course, of
Yes,
course.
of course. We want to make that very clear. Well, I hope you have a blessed Thanksgiving. And
Well,
yeah, we're
thank
jumping
you.
into the holiday season and things get really busy. So have a blessed Thanksgiving. Stay safe, and
Thank
we'll
you.
talk to you again soon.
All right. Thank you.